This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. And I'm so happy today. I'm very excited because not only do I have my second guest, or I should say my second co-host, because she is definitely my co-host, not only in today's episode, but also in my life. And I'm so excited to introduce my wife, Alba Yates, who was born in Cuba, came to America, had a successful career on the LA Sheriff's Department, has now started her own real estate investment company. She went on in the Sheriff's Department to be a spokesperson for the news part of the Sheriff's Department. And we're going to talk about her story today. Honey, I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you. That was a great introduction.
And so you were born in Cuba. Tell me what you remember about that and how old you were when you came to America and how that happened.
Well, let's see. I was 6 years old, and what I do remember is having a great time. I never knew that I was lacking in anything. So I remember just having fun with my cousin, riding bikes around the streets. I remember the beaches, just going into the water, how clear and beautiful it was. And I also do remember going into, my uncle had a trucking business where he would transport sugarcane. So I do remember going in the back of his truck with all the sugarcane, and I enjoyed just doing things like that. It's good times. Yes.
Wow, great memories. And you were 6 years old is when you came to America?
That's correct, yes.
And what do you remember about that? Do you remember were you on a plane?
Oh, yeah, I do remember. I remember being on a plane, yes. And I do remember the plane ride because I got sick. Yeah. And I remember there was, the stewardess gave me a little bag, a barf bag, I guess. That's what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my memory of the plane ride. I was excited to go on the plane ride, but then that was not so good memorable. But other than that, yeah, I remember going on the plane and then going to Florida. And I do remember that they separated us. I was with some kids. And yeah, I remember sleeping on some bunks with some kids. And then I remember getting a vaccination shot. It was like a whole bunch of little needles on my shoulder. Yeah.
And you came with your mom, dad, and two sisters.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. And then, and so your dad, who was in the military, he always wanted to come to America, right? He had seen pictures.
Oh, yeah,
of
yes.
America.
He's always seen pictures of America. I guess he would see pictures of the Statue of Liberty. Most of it was like New York. And he wanted to come here where it was the land of the free. And it was a battle to get here because it was a lot of paperwork. And his brothers and sisters were already in America. And that's how he was able to come to America. But we had to fill a lot of forms back and forth. Took probably a couple of years just to finally get the paperwork to go to America.
And so I was amazed at the story. So when it was put that he would be allowed to take the family out of Cuba, as soon as you make that decision, then he had to work for another 5 years, or he had to do all these things before he would be allowed to go. And then go into how you have to sign over everything. You have to give up all your properties and.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Once you decide to leave Cuba, you give up everything, your house, everything that's in the house. In fact, they come over and they itemize everything that's in your house to make sure that you don't take it with you.
Yeah.
They'll come back, and they'll make sure that you don't take it with you. Yeah.
You know, they say if you're born in America, you won the lottery. But I think if you were born somewhere else and come to America, you've won the lottery because you have a different perspective. And I just was questioning my own patriotism when I met your dad, because he would always, I think every day that I ever saw him, he had an American flag somewhere on his body, either on his belt or his shirt or his hat. And I'm pretty sure I seemed like he kissed the ground every day that he was in America.
Yes, he did. Oh, he loved America.
Yeah.
He did. He was the most patriotic man that I knew.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you're born here, you don't have that perspective. You're born in America and you think this is the way it is. And then when you come from somewhere else, you realize this is really the land of opportunity because of the perspective that you have. I just loved hearing his stories that you would translate for me. And everybody, your whole family came here and became citizens and studied and how to assimilate into America. And it's just a great story.
Yes. And it seems like all my family that came here, they all thrive. They came here to make sure their kids had a better life and thrived. And I think that's what's been happening with all our generations.
Just amazing that your dad was probably 40s or 50 when he...
I think he was close to 50. Yes. I am pretty sure he was about 50 years old. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how anybody born in America would probably be able to just sign over all their property and give up everything they own just to go to a new country, and what courage that took to be able to do that, a leap of faith to start that journey. Wow.
Yes. Hard work. And then to find a job in America. And he was a hard worker, hard laborer. He worked for a factory, in a carpet factory. So it was hard work. Yep.
Do you think you got your work ethic from him? Because you actually started working at 15? You lied to get a job, and you just wanted to get your own job and start working.
Well, I think I got the work ethics from both my mom and dad, because my mom, not only did my mom work hard, she also was the homemaker, everything. She cleaned the house, she fed us, she cooked, and then she still went to work, and she still took care of us. And she made sure she was there at all. If she had to work nights, she'd work nights, but she made sure that we were there, that she was there when we woke up and fed us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, very ethics when it comes to taking care of the house. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you started working at McDonald's? No, you started working at 31 Flavors.
Oh yeah, I couldn't wait to go to work because I wanted to have my own money, because we didn't have that much money. So if I wanted to have anything for myself, I had to get my own job. So I couldn't wait to get a job. I remember my mom taking me to the Employment Development Center to get a job, and I just stood in line and got my little ticket, and they called me, and then they interviewed me, and then I wanted to get a job so bad, I kind of didn't tell them the truth. I was only 15, because this job was for a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And
wow.
They caught me. But they found me a job at Baskin-Robbins. I only had to be 15, so...
God, that's great. And then from there, you went to McDonald's?
Yep. I went from Baskin-Robbins, then I worked at McDonald's, and I worked at another fast Pioneer Takeout. Yep.
Wow. And then look at what you did. You raised 3 boys, 2 are with the Sheriff's Department now, and still had a full-time job in the Sheriff's Department, and were able to have a great career.
Yes.
So, man, you accomplished a lot yourself.
Yeah, I guess I did. Yeah, and I worked before the Sheriff's Department, I worked for Wells Fargo Bank for 5 years. So, yeah, that was...
That's why you're so good at figures and money.
Yes, that is why I'm so good at finances.
Yeah. Well, we both, we shared the same, we were kind of driven to try to do better and to get better in our life. And I remember when I first went to Tony Robbins, and then you saw that I had gone, and then you actually got the 30-day program and did that yourself.
Yes, I did.
And every goal that you wrote down initially, you actually achieved all those goals.
Yeah, that is correct. Let's see if I remember. I had short-term and long-term goals, and I think I did. I wanted to take acting class, which I did. I said I wanted to buy some properties on the water, in which I did. I think we bought a cottage in the islands.
Yep.
And then I also wanted to buy a Jaguar, which I did.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was ever going to be able to do that, but I did everything. And then I also wanted a beach house, in which I now have living on the beach. So yeah, everything I put down on paper came true.
Came to happen. And I was inspired by you that I had gone to the live Tony Robbins in like 93 or 4, and you had always told me, well, if you ever go again, I would go with you. And we ended up going together again in 2018 together.
Yes, that was great.
And we walked on the hot coals together, which I had done before, which is quite a thing. But you were willing to do that, and you were amazing.
Oh yeah, I loved it. That was a great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it, and Tony Robbins is amazing, and I learned a lot of myself.
Yeah, it was amazing that we both had, we went through a visualization exercise, and then we came out and we kind of had similar visuals that we created down the road in our future. And one of them was to, have a beach house and live on the beach. And here we are, we're on the beach today as we record this. Hopefully the sound of the waves isn't too loud and interfere with our recording.
Yes. And I do remember the visualization, and I do remember being in a beach house and being like on a top floor and having all my family, all my children, grandchildren surrounding me. And I was looking out into the beach, and right now I'm actually sitting in my beach house, and it's on the top floor, third floor. So it's exactly what I envisioned.
And it came to be. They've all been here, and you've had
Yes.
the grandkids here, and
They've all been here. So they've all been here in this living room with
It's
me.
amazing, yeah. If you have a beach house, people will come to visit. I guarantee you.
That's right. If you want your kids to visit you, get a beach
Get
house.
a beach house.
Yes.
That's the prescription. Now, I grew up, working out and exercising because I had trouble putting on weight and I wanted to get bigger. How did you start your exercise regimen? Because we kind of share that both. If we go 2 or 3 days without working out, we both feel a little anxiety. So how did you start?
I guess I always liked to work out. Even when I was younger, I used to always play with my cousins who were male cousins, and we would always be doing sports, running, competing against each other. I was, I guess, like a tomboy. And then also in school, I remember they always would have the presidential, I guess, what's it called? This presidential award where you have to do several things like run a mile and a half in so many minutes, sit-ups. And I did over and excelled in that.
Yeah.
And I remember that they also picked me, I don't know if I was 10 or 11 years old, because I did a lot of pull-ups. And at the time, I didn't know what, they just took me to another school, and it was a competition on, some kids could do so many pull-ups, some kids could do more sit-ups, and I remember going to that. So that was exciting. I always like to do that. Competitive. Yeah.
Going back to, you just reminded me of something. So what, did you speak English in Cuba or no?
No, I only spoke Spanish.
And so you learned English after you were 6 and came here. Wow.
Yes, I learned it right first grade.
Yeah, and you speak both languages so well. Do you think it's because you were so young when you learned English, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure because I have a older sister, and it took her, I think she still has an accent because she was 13 when she came to America. And I think it was harder for her to learn the language because I'm sure she, as a teenager, you feel left out, and she didn't want to leave Cuba because she left all her friends. So when she came here, I think she just hung around with people that spoke Spanish, and I think that's the reason why she didn't learn the English as much, and she still has the accent. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it was 2016 or so when you took your mother back to Cuba on a visit. She's 80.
Oh, yes. It was 2014, and she was 87 at the time.
87, yeah.
Yes.
And how was that experience when you went back there? It was kind of surprising, huh?
Well, it was an adventure because it was just me and my mom. And at the time, my mom, she got dementia. And before she wanted to go to Cuba, so I promised her I was going to take her to Cuba. And at the time, she didn't have dementia. But by the time we got our passports, it was 6 months later. So, yeah, it was an adventure, taking all the pills. And then we, at one point, when we got to Miami, we realized that she her American passport was expired, and I thought I had everything because I got her Cuban passport. I got my Cuban passport, but I didn't think to check her American passport, since they checked it when I went to the it was a Cuba agency to get the tickets. They gave us the tickets and they checked the passport. Well, lo and behold, when we got there, they said, "Oh, your mom can't go to Cuba because she doesn't have her passport." So I didn't know what to do. It was like 5 a.m, so I'm scrambling to call my sister. And then she called my cousin, and then I got somebody in Florida that we knew that helped us to get to the immigration and get a 24-hour passport, photos for her. So it was, and with her having dementia, being 87 years old, and it was just me waiting in line and sitting with her, and it was, those 24 hours were quite an ordeal.
People probably don't realize, so since you were born in Cuba, you have to maintain two passports. You had to have American and a Cuban passport.
Yes, and it's complicated, but it depends what year you came over. Like, since we came in 71, we have to have a Cuban passport to go to Cuba. And if you're an American, obviously American passport. But some other Cubans that came before, they don't have to do that. So it all depends what year.
So I was surprised that, so some people don't know that. So they think sometimes when policies change, some people that were under the, I've heard people ask you, things must be getting better, but they don't realize the money really doesn't get to the citizens, right? No matter what happens, the government takes most of it first, and the citizens are always going to be last on the list.
Yes, that's correct. I don't think it's still the same. It hasn't changed like since the 1950s. And I remember I did go back in 1982 when I was 18, and then I went back and 20, 30 years later, and it's still, everything's the same. The streets are still, the pavement, it's all ripped up. There's water going through the sidewalks. There's mosquitoes. It's not very nice. It's very depressing.
And just because we as the country aren't supposed to or allowed to vacation there, a lot of other countries, they go there all the time, right? There's hotels for other European tourists, and that's how the government makes the money, or in one way.
It's correct. Yeah, there's a lot of Europeans that come. There's a lot of Germans and Russians and Italians that come and vacation there, and there's some hotels that they're nice, but they don't go to the area where most of the Cubans live. So,
and you're and when you go there, families are allowed. They take quite a bit with them, money and clothes, and then the government likes that because they like to see American money in the system.
Well, I think because the U.S. dollar is worth a lot, and the Cuban peso is not worth anything.
Okay.
So they like it when you bring U.S. dollars.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you get more because we always would bring U.S. dollars and give it to our family, and I don't know, they would go to a bank and maybe get more for that U.S. dollar.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so you have 3 boys you raised while working a full-time job, and now 2 are on the sheriff's department, and one came to Florida with us, is now thriving as I guess they call a yachty. He's a deckhand, and he's learning to become an engineer, and he got dive certified. He's doing all these wonderful, exciting things.
Yes, I'm so proud of him. Actually, I'm proud of all my sons because, if it wasn't for my dad, my kids would not be thriving and be doing whatever they wanted to do. So both my 2 olders are now deputy sheriffs. They're married, have kids. They have beautiful homes. And now my youngest son is now having he's a deckhand. He's on beautiful yachts, working hard. Ethics, I guess, comes from mom and dad. And I'm just so proud. I'm so happy that I'm here in America and that my boys can do this. And I just hope that my grandkids also follow in the footsteps of grandparents, great-grandparents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think they will. Something tells me they will. All right. Why don't we call it for our first episode? I think it was fantastic. I think you did a great job, as always.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
And you'll come back with me.
Yes, I will.
Okay. Fantastic.
Definitely. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're watching or listening on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell so that you get notified when new episodes come out. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, Spotify, iTunes, we're everywhere around the world. Subscribe to the podcast. Thanks, everybody.